We like to remember our history and polished marble. We build monuments to the monarchs who forged nations, drafted the first laws, and charted the boundaries of the modern world. The stories we learn are usually written by the victors. They are tales of military genius, of bold reform and grand philanthropy. We celebrate the empires they built, and marvel at the wealth they accumulated, rarely pausing to ask what was required to lay those foundations. But an uncomfortable reality emerges when a single person achieves absolute, unquestioned authority, when there is no parliament to veto an order, no court to enforce a law, and when there is no rival left to challenge the throne. The human mind struggles to cope with the isolation. These great rulers utilized calculated systemic terror to secure their crowns. They weaponized violence as a functional tool of the state to satisfy their own deep-seated insecurities. Genghis Khan stands as the ultimate military visionary, the man who united the nomadic tribes of the steppe. To create the largest contiguous land empire in human history, his expansion relied on a strategy of logistical erasure. During the Khwarezmian campaign of the early 13th century, targeted cities faced a binary choice: unconditional submission or total annihilation. Terror was integrated directly into his military logistics, intended to break the spirit of resistance before a single arrow was fired. The results of this doctrine were staggering. In cities like Merv and Nishapur, resistance led to total destruction. Mongol engineers deployed an arsenal of siege weapons to level defenses, after which the survivors were systematically executed. In Nishapur, the forces reportedly stacked severed heads into pyramids to ensure that stories of the city's fate would pacify the rest of the region. 3 centuries later, another ruler maintained power through a very different kind of purge. King Henry VIII is often remembered as a charismatic intellectual, the king who broke from Rome to establish himself as the supreme head of the Church of England. This theological revolution provided a smokescreen for absolute control. Henry routinely executed those closest to him when they failed to serve his needs. Anne Boleyn was executed at Tower Green after she failed to produce a male heir and challenged Henry's expectations of a submissive queen. Even his most loyal advisors were disposable. Thomas Cromwell, the brilliant architect of the English Reformation, was branded a heretic and executed when a political marriage he arranged failed to please the king. In Henry's court, political survival was tethered entirely to the monarch's shifting favor. Both Genghis and Henry viewed human life as a resource to be spent. One used mass slaughter to pacify foreign lands, while the other used intimate betrayals to control his own inner circle. In 16th century Russia, Ivan the Terrible earned the title of Tsar by unifying a fragmented state and expanding its borders. He is the foundational figure of the Russian autocracy. His reign was defined by a deepening paranoia, potentially fueled by the mercury he consumed to treat chronic pain. To crush his perceived enemies, he created the Oprichnina, the first political secret police in Russian history. These men operated outside the law, granted the right to seize land and execute anyone Ivan suspected of treason. In 1570, Ivan personally led the Oprichnina into the city of Novgorod on a month-long purge. Thousands were tortured and thrown into the freezing Fokhov River on mere suspicion of conspiracy. Not even the church was spared. Priests and monks were brutally punished as their parishioners watched. Across the continent, and 1,000 years earlier, the Roman Emperor Nero sat at the helm of the ancient world's greatest superpower. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD exposed Nero's staggering incompetence while his city burned. He later used the cleared land to build his own luxurious palace complex, the Domus Aurea. As public outrage grew, he needed a way to deflect suspicion. Nero identified the Christians, a small misunderstood minority sect, as his scapegoats. He subjected them to theatrical public executions to distract the population. For both Ivan and Nero, terror served as a mechanism to protect a fragile ego and deflect from their own failures of leadership. By the late 19th century, King Leopold II presented himself as a global philanthropist. He claimed his mission in the Congo was a civilizing effort to spread Christianity and end the local slave trade. Behind this image lay the Congo Free State, a private colony run for his personal profit. His private army, the force public, enforced a regime of terror to sustain the rubber extraction system. Local populations were forced into labor to meet impossible quotas for the booming European market. The system was brutal and calculated. If quotas were not met, punishments followed as a matter of policy. Entire communities lived under constant fear. The wealth extracted funded grand monuments back in Belgium. This wealth stands in stark contrast to the millions of lives affected under his rule. Leopold represents the ultimate evolution of the tyrant. One who industrialized exploitation while maintaining the public image of a benefactor. Logistical massacres, intimate purges, secret police, and systemic oppression. These served as the standard toolkit for rulers with limitless authority. Limitless power inevitably strips humanity from governance. In the eyes of a tyrant, people become obstacles to remove or assets to exploit. When we look at the monuments of history, we must ask what was sacrificed to build them. The darkest truths are often the ones history tried hardest to hide.